All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Dr. Vernita Glenn White. I'm a strategic transformational coach, and I am here with Women Who Vibe. And I am talking with Dr. Shawnrece Campbell. And Dr. Campbell, tell us who you are and what you do in the world.
Hi, I am the new dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Texas A&M University-Corpus Christi. I'm really excited about that, and also a professor of English here. I'm finishing up my 6 weeks, I believe. Like, it's gone so fast. I started July 1. So I'm having a great time writing right now, just getting to learn the culture as well as the faculty in the college, and doing listening tours so I can understand who they are, what they're working on, and really listen to their ideas about how I can best support them and help them to achieve the goals that they have that they want to accomplish at the university.
Wow, new dean, and that is amazing. So, can you give us just a little bit of background because you don't just pop up to be a dean of a college? So, let us know how, like,
Oh,
just a little bit of your journey to get there.
okay. Well, so I worked at a previous institution for 19 years before I left and accepted the job here. And at that previous institution, I was a director of the Africana Studies program for 9 years. I then had a family tragedy strike. And I stepped down from all administrative positions except for teaching for about 3 years to give my family time to grieve and really get well into the healing process. And then I was approached by a colleague who had by that time become a associate provost and vice president at the university about starting a organizational leadership bachelor's degree completion program for adult students who were working, and they needed something that was super flexible. So I agreed to do that. One of the reasons that he thought I'd be ideal for it was because I had my PhD in English, but I had also obtained my MBA too. And so he knew that I knew what it was to be a full-time working adult as a professor, also going back to grad school to achieve this MBA. So he thought life experience as well as knowledge would make me excellent for that. And so from that position, I then was asked to be an associate dean. We got a new interim provost, and he and I worked really well together. And he watched my skill set, and so when the associate dean position became available in the College of Liberal of Arts and Sciences, there I was asked if I would like to pursue it, and I did. Of course, my caveat, and it always has been, is that okay, my family comes first. Is this a job that I can do pretty much between 8 and 5? And I understand there'll sometimes be evening and weekend events that I can do, but pretty much. And they agreed, and I said okay, and they knew I would do top work, and so. I was an associate dean there for 2.5 years. And then just a little over 2 years of being associate dean, I started getting calls from headhunters who were looking for people to apply for dean positions. And it's ironic, TAM-UCC wasn't one of those schools where the headhunter reached out, but because I had 2 or 3 by that time, I said, oh, let me look and see what else is out there. And I applied to this institution because I thought it was a great fit for the description of who they were looking for, the next visionary they needed for the college. And that's how I ended up here. And so I'm really excited to be an islander, as we say, Shakaza.
Well, that is an amazing journey. And I was listening to a lot of the things that you said. And this goes into like the next question of how would you describe yourself personally or professionally or both? And just from hearing your story, I think it's both because you made sure that your family was there. But I want you
Yes.
to talk more about how that became like a pivotal, well, not pivotal, but such an important part of I'm going to have this career. However, my personal family is still a part of that decision.
Yeah, so always my family has come first. That's like a family model that has spanned generations. It's family first, family above all else. And so whatever I do, of course, I believe in doing it with excellence. That's also a family model that we have. And so I make sure that whatever job I'm accepting will be able to accommodate the ethos by which I live my life, because I refuse to compromise on that. And so going into that and understanding, you know, what the job parameters are, you get a feel for different institutions and how they operate, if they're more family oriented, you know, or forward leaning or not, etc. And certainly if you're offered the position, having those conversations, you know, about where I am at in life, and this is how I'm running my life. I'm a very outspoken person and also very truthful and very straightforward. I'm not a game player. I never have been. That does not suit me well. That's not my skill set. And so what you see is what you get. And many people love that kind of genuineness. Some are kind of put off because they'd rather you pretty it up. And I have learned to apply the honey every now and then, you know, and definitely deliver hard truths when necessary, but with as much compassion as possible. I do that. But overall, whether it's Shawnrece in my personal life or Shawnrece in my business life, you're getting the same Shawnrece. There's like not two different Shawnreces running around. And, and anybody who has had the pleasure of experiencing both sides of that can tell you that that is the truth. I am the same person. And so any position I go into, I have to be able to bring that vibrancy that is me. I have to be able, I know I have a brilliant mind, you know, and it works the way that it does. And also too, I love and I relish my femininity and the strength and skill set that brings to a situation. I don't shy away from that at all. Bringing my femininity into my personal space as well as into my workspace. I think women, we need to celebrate our femininity more in the workspace, as a matter of fact. And then just bring a gorgeousness inside and out every day. That's what I aim to deliver, regardless of the circumstances happening around me. And of course, you know, some days that's easier than others,
Right.
but still put your best foot forward.
Wow, that's amazing, especially about the femininity part and embracing that and then being true to who you are. Because a lot of women, especially in career and as we go up the ladder, it's like we feel like we have to sacrifice. I one of them, you know, putting things like it's always career. But I just want you just how did you become the person, or have you always been this person to not and I just want to dig a little deeper into that because deeper into being this whole person with work and life because that is still rare, especially you are dean of a college. So this is not like, oh, you just have this, you know, this job with a title. You have a full responsibility, and it's been a long career journey.
Right.
So to still say no, family first, or me being who I am, how did you like maintain that, or has that
Well,
always been a part of you?
it has always been a part of me. And what I found in those rare moments where I would be like, okay, I'm going to try and be someone who I wasn't, I got burned bad. And it felt horrible. Then it felt exponentially more horrible because I wasn't being my authentic self. And oh my gosh, it's been decades since an incident that happened. But I was like, no. And I think once you have enough of those, and I think maybe there were three, you know, it's so hard. I'm one of those people that when you forgive, self-forgiveness, that stuff starts to fade in memory. And
Yes.
I remember the pain of it, but I can't tell you the exact details around what caused
Right.
it.
You
It's like
healed
this
over that.
weird
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Right. Exactly. But I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to feel like that again. And I remember the impetus of what caused that is because I didn't trust my inner spirit, and I should have. Can't conform to what other people want you to be and their idea of who they think you should be. But people can sometimes see talents we don't see in ourselves, and etc., but only we know the journey that we are supposed to live on this earth. I truly believe that. And that when you're really in tune with yourself and you just practice listening to self day in and day out, and you're going to mess up. We all do.
Right.
I still mess up,
Right.
still, especially in new situations. I have a tendency more to second guess myself than others. And I have to every day mentally say to myself that, I'm going to go in strong and I'm going to trust Shawnrece, all while I'm information gathering, all while too I'm remaining flexible to change. I'm not dogmatic and dug into something like that. I'm still very flexible, but I go into it trusting me, and it's gotten me this far. So it's been an evolution, and I'm 52 years old today. Not my
Really?
birthday, but I'm 52 years old. And
Oh, wow.
so yeah, I'm not, yeah, and I love this age. I love this decade, gained so much wisdom, still young enough to enjoy so much of it and so much more of
Right.
life to come. Um, but yeah, so it's a process too. But I think what I've tried to instill in my daughters from a very young age is retrospection, and actually, okay, let's think about the domino effect of that, not just right now and in the now, but what about 6 months from now? What about 5 years from now? What about, right? So that puts things in perspective. Is it really that big and that important? Or if it is, how is that going to, well, all of us, sometimes we just have the hard head track.
Oh yeah. Of course. Of course.
there's there are some things we get right away and we're like, oh, we can learn from other person's example. We don't have to
Hmm.
go through it at all. Then there are other areas of our life, and it's different for all of us,
Right.
where, oh my God, we're like flunking that test for the 10th time.
Yes, I know. Yes. Oh my gosh. And it's like the answer. It's just
But you're just like, well, no, let me try it one more time this way, because you're so determined
exactly. Right.
that you want to achieve that which you're not supposed to be doing. And that's probably the hardest, like letting that go. Just but no,
Yep.
let that go. Or it's not your time or season yet, too. And that is a huge area of growth. I really wish that there's somebody out there who has a lot of wisdom and you hear this, that, write books on that, helping people to identify the time and the season, when a dream is deferred, that it's not necessarily denied, it's just not your season yet, and how to incubate and give birth to that. And I'm talking about that, and so I do have some knowledge about
Mhm.
that. But I'm sure there are folks where that's their lane. You know
Right.
what I mean? That's their lane, and they can really give folks instruction in that too. And so, I think all of those things help us to be the whole person of who we are. Um, the biggest thing is learning to embrace and love every part of yourself, the parts that you delight in and the parts that you find challenging. And that allows you to bring the authentic self to the table too. And then to have standards, your standards of
Right.
what what you will allow and what is absolutely non-negotiable. And what's absolutely non-negotiable for me is family first.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love how you put all of that full circle. And I wanna ask you like specific questions, but I'm gonna tie them into the overall theme of really, I wrote a book, and you may know or may not know, but I think you know. I told you about
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Embracing grit for greatness, becoming professional, powerful through personal empowerment. So, you said some great things, but I want you to respond to them kind of as we break down that title. It, you said a lot, but I just want to just like categorize it because I heard all of the answers and it's great. So I've been holding myself like, no, don't ask that yet. So the first part, because I talk about grit and professionally, you know about grit, but I want to know, what does grit like mean to you? And I only heard about this when I started my PhD program, so I didn't know about the
Okay.
word for grit, but I want to
Um,
know what it means to you.
it means getting my grind on. And getting my grind on means sometimes I just have to push through and get things done. I mean, we're not going to always love everything we do in life, or we love some aspects of a project, but not others. But we've got to push through the parts we don't and do those with excellence to get to the really good parts that we can relish in and delight ourselves in. So for me, grit is getting that grind on in whatever area that you are doing you, you know? Um, and I think grit too apply for me, that indicates somebody who's found that area of life that delights them, and they're really working it. They maybe that there's usually not a pathway, or the pathway they're on isn't the straight one.
Right.
That's what but they are grinding it out. They're out there, they're making smart strategical decisions. They're adapting to situations and change and the fluidity that comes with the grind. They are doing all of that while keeping their eye on the mark, the goal that they're after in the first place. So for me, that's grit. Um, for me, grit does not mean taking abuse of any kind, whether it's from, an employer,
Right.
or in relationships, or that's, and there's all kinds of, abuse out there. Even the mentality of, well, it's always been like that for you people, or it's always been like that for you. Just suck it up and, yeah, no. Okay.
Right.
No, for me, that's not grit. That is being in an abusive situation, and that needs to be called out, and that has to change.
Yes.
Right. So there's a difference there too. I think old school thinking was you just, and two, I will acknowledge the times too. They that had to be done as a part of grit, right? Getting the grind. Today's world, it does not. And so for anybody who would find themselves in a situation like that, where people are essentially, abusing you or oppressing you, etc., in different forms, and telling you to just suck it up and deal with it because that's the way it's been. No. We don't grind like that today. We've got choices. So
I love that because you were earlier you were talking about having standards for yourself, and then the whole retrospection piece that you teach your or you taught your daughters or still teach your daughters, that still applies in this situation as well. And I'll be honest, when you talk about abuse, I didn't know that, and we don't have to go into too much detail about this. This is a different story. I mean, a different time, but I didn't know there's a such thing as, like, I'll say professional abuse or academic abuse.
absolutely, you,
Because
yes.
you opened my eyes to that, because part of, understanding grit, it was like, well, all the things you said I agree with, but then it was that part, it's like, well, I have to have this grit or this grind in this area. And you were like, no, this is not normal.
No.
So I just want to, like I said, we can talk about this another time, but I did want to shed light, like when we hear the word abuse, we think it's relationships. Like, well, I
Yes.
know what that looks like. I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
But there is a thing called professional or academic abuse, and that is
Yes.
not grit. So I just want to
Mhm.
highlight that. And I'll say thank you for saving me because being aware had no idea. So just saying that to all the listeners, there is a thing, and that is not the grit.
There
Okay.
is. And I have to say, and I teach it to my sons too. So I don't want
Oh,
them, like getting
right.
on me at home, mom. Equity for gender.
That's right. That's right. That is right.
They already give me lectures when they think I'm too far womaning.
That is right. It goes both. We have to teach both sides. You're
Yes,
absolutely
we
right.
do. And
You're
I've
absolutely right.
trained my children equally. That's from domestic duties of, my son knows how to cook just as well as, matter of fact, he's even better cook than my daughters. My one daughter actually preferred, outside work and, cleaning as opposed to it, so, but I always told them I will not have you beholden to someone else in the house on being able to fix something or get something done with your car or make yourself a meal. No, no, no. I'm not going to put you out there like that. You will be self-sufficient on your own. And then you have a partner who contributes. Awesome, right? But yeah, you're not going to be held hostage because you don't have a basic living skill set. That's what I considered them. So
that was great. It's like, no, equal opportunity. Okay. So you touched on this too, but I want to just for you to expand on it. What does greatness mean to you?
Oh, it's living your best life, living life like you wrote it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as an English, do I call you the English major or English? I never know, like, how do I say that? You're an English
Well,
person,
now would
right?
be an English professor,
Okay.
right? Yes,
So an
okay.
English professor, and with the writing, because
Or
you also
professor of
write.
English.
A
Yes.
professor of English,
There
okay.
we go. All right.
And you write. So expand on that a little bit, living life like you wrote it, especially
Oh
coming
my
from a
gosh.
writer.
This is a phrase that years ago, a old boyfriend of mine kind of inspired me when I would write about him. And I would always ask him, are you living life like you wrote it? Um, because that meant that not only we were achieving our dreams in life and what it was that we wanted to do, but we were also living the best version of ourselves that we imagined that we could be. Not somebody else again imagining what it could be, but that we imagine, and you have that fulfillment and that love and contentness and fellowship, that sustained and supported you regardless of what circumstances were happening around you. Because as we know, in living our best life happens, right? And then how do you live your best life through the challenges, et cetera, as well as the really, really, really good times. So
I don't think we do that as a whole, especially I'm going to just put myself out there and say as women too, but just people, I don't think we do that. I think we hear something like that and it sounds good, but to be intentional about actually writing out what you want your life to look like from your perspective, your standards. And that's a theme I keep hearing from you. It's like, what do you want? How do you want it? And a lot of times it's being a professional woman or a high achieving person, we know the rules of that life and we follow the rules and the expectations, especially the more titles and degrees you have, we fall into that expectation. But I love hearing everything you said, whether it was personal or professional, was your standard and making sure that you are doing it because you're of your authentic self. And in theory, it sounds good, but I don't think a lot of us actually practice that. So I love hearing like how that shows up in real life. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Going into part of that, I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on personal development and personal growth? Because we know what this looks like professional. You are a dean. You've been in the education space. You know what faculty development is, professional development is. But what are your thoughts on personal growth and personal development?
I would not be a dean if I had not continued to grow as a person. So you can be brilliant and have a brilliant mind, etc. But if you are still emotionally behaving to situations like a teenager or even younger, and I've got colleagues, I've not here, but former colleagues who play that and constantly sabotage themselves because there's no self-discipline in that area. There has been no personal growth in that area. So having an area that has been neglected, right, can really sabotage you in your professional life because it's not the skill set for the professional job that you're lacking.
Right.
It's the comportment of your personal self and your reaction to different things and your response and your ability to grow in that. That's what sabotages a lot of people. And that training continues. We think it's just kids and they get of age and that sort of thing, but we are constantly training that. I'm constantly having conversations with my mom too about this area of growth and response, particularly with family. I think that family is the best training ground
Yes.
there possibly is.
Yes,
And
For
if you can master that and being your true authentic self and still being respectful to aunties who quite might not understand. It's usually always the aunties, never the uncles. I don't know what's up with that, but hey, okay. I've only had one uncle and he was a married in. He wasn't a relative. Went along those lines. And I remember responding to him sharply. And one of my mom's sisters was like, "You didn't say that to so and so." And I was like, "Yes, she did." And he was like, "I'm glad she did." He liked my blunt authenticness, even though, as I look back now, it wasn't a very respectful tone. It wasn't the words, it was the tone.
Always the tone.
But those things, right? Those personal growth areas can sabotage you professionally if you do not grow in that area. I mean, they could be a real hindrance. So in that way, I believe that. Also, too, on the positive side, I think the more in love you are with yourself, the better you do on the professional end, whether that's you being in business for yourself. I'm a big believer in multi-streams of income, and or you working for someone else too. That enthusiasm and love of self, and not in a narcissistic way, right? But in a very healthy way that comes across too, and that helps to propel you. Because there's something about your light that shines in a way others doesn't. And I think that all comes from personal growth. And there is no one size fits all, no one strategy that fits all. What works for one person might not work for somebody else, or they're just not at that point yet. Maybe 5 years later, they're like raving about it. And you're looking at them like, but they weren't there yet, right? So they needed a different kind of tool at that particular point in their lives. And just, I think in that way, giving people freedom and space to be them and not having to do things the way you do it or see things the way you see it. Let them travel the avenue they need to get to the same goal. That's also what I would say about personal growth, because everything that saying everything isn't for everyone is very true.
Right. So that leads me to kind of deviate or alter the next question, because professional development, it does show up as a one size fit all. We've gone to faculty trainings or in our core content areas, is like, this is what it is. But I want to know, like, what are your thoughts of, even though personal development is a personal journey, do you think that should be part of professional development as well? Like focusing on you yourself, but that's still, does that make sense? That's still part of that. Like you need to have that in your leadership track or your faculty development track.
Yes,
what are your
absolutely. Thoughts? Because again, you're right. training has been one size fits all, but as we break for that model for our students and understand you got to meet your students where they're at, every student's needs are different. I really am implementing that too as dean. Every one of my faculty and staff members' needs are different. How can I meet you where you're at? And that's part of the listening tour that I'm doing with them. I want to understand who they are and how to best support them where they're at and where they want to get to. Right? If they're content doing with what they're doing, awesome. But if they want more, whatever that more is, or have goals, great. How can I help you get there? What's the best way that you work? Right? So I'm not trying to force them into some cookie cutter kind of process. And there are enough opportunities out there that everything can be adapted and modified and changed these days to meet those niche interests, right? Which then becomes a value added for my college and the university overall, is because we have that niche and nobody else does. And you have a person who's full of compassion about it, who's on fire about it, right? That sort of thing. So I think slowly that is evolving, and it has to, because we haven't been an industrial society where we're just stamping things out for a very long time. And all the industries, though some have dragged their feet more than others, and education is slow to change. That it has finally come to the place too where like it cannot be business as usual.
But I love that coming from a leader, hearing you say that. One, it's not a cookie cutter, but then looking, and essentially what I'm hearing is looking at the whole person. And if you, especially the express growth, because if someone doesn't express it, it doesn't matter how much you give them or show them, they're just not going to do it. But listening, you said the listening tours and actually listening to what your faculty needs and your colleague needs. Well, they're your faculty because they're under you. So listening to their needs and then having a prescribed, they get to fix their, put their learning together, whether that's professionally and personally. So I love hearing that from you as a leader. And I didn't think about the industrial age. I mean, I have, but not in the terms of what it looks like for personal and professional development. We can't just keep, all right, you got it, check mark. And then, I like what you said, value added. I don't think we focus on that. It's like, just go get all this training as a check off, but then what does that look like for the organization when you come back?
Exactly. What's the impact, right? So that's the question that's being asked now. And for me, that's what impact means, right? That you are able to bring back a value added from whatever it was that you went in, you participated in. That's the impact, right? And that value added should have move you forward in some way. Right. And if it's not doing that, then we really need to look at is that a training or service or curriculum or course that we want to continue if it's not having a value added effect.
I love that, because in the K-12, what value added is something totally different. It's a numbers things or scores or school wise, but in higher education, I love that you said, how are you adding value back? Looking at everything that we do. So I love that you said that. We're going to transition, because now I don't want to say that I know this answer, but one question is, as you, how would, I think you're a successful person, a successful woman, but how do you define success for yourself?
Oh, again, I mean, that's got to be my best self. And I think, okay, so there's success in terms of the way world looks at you for success. And I've always shied away from that definition of success. I've never put the focus of success in my household in that way. Wow. Our discussions around success have always been, what is it that you love to do? Are you living that life like you wrote it? Do you feel fulfilled? Are you full of joy as a baseline, and then happiness? Because happiness is different from joy.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, right. And are you happy? most of the time with what you're doing, you know, that success, right? Then there are some accoutrements that come with success, you know. Um, sure, if you can, if higher end fashion is your thing, you know, staying at more luxury hotels are your thing, the ability just to go in the store and buy and just pick up stuff, and you're
Without
not
looking at
really
the price
caring about
tag.
the price tag, and you get in there and you swipe the card and you're paying the card off at the end of the month, and that, surely that's success. That is a measure of success, right? But it's not the measure of success. Um, and have really worked very hard and continue to work very diligently with my children, that it's fine to have status symbols and etc., but that's not where your worth, that's not where your value is derived from. It's that inner self and fulfillment. Because if all of this went away, right, which would be sad, and you had to start from scratch, do
Woo.
you have what's on the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right, to grind it out.
Right.
Yeah, right, have that grit, and and go from there. And at the end of the day, I heard this long ago, I think from a preacher who had actually lost all his valuables in a house fire. The house completely burned down, but every family member lived, and the family pets. And he said he had recovered it all. And I said, yes, you did. I knew instantly, because they could not be replaced.
Right.
All that other stuff can be replaced, right? So as long as I have my family and we're in fellowship with each other, and, you know, that sort of, I have it all. And for me, that's successful. And they're living a life, and they're well, and their health is well, right? And they don't want or lack for the basic needs, you
Right.
know, and they're able to have extras. I love that. That is success. So I am not a person who spends a lot of time on the material um version of success. I'm aware of it. I'm more aware of it because I'm in a higher profile and status position now. So I'm more aware of it, even at, you know, asking friends and that sort of thing, because it just, I knew it was there and I observed it, but it was never really my realm to operate in, you know. I didn't care about it in that way. Success meant something really different for me than folks who hang success on material visibility.
Wow. You know, I wish I had that lesson while I was going through like my whole doc program and all of that, because I knew this as a child. That's how I was built up as a child. But then it was something about when I got into the doc program, it's like all of this, you know, success was very different. Forget your happiness. Is like, what can you achieve? So that turned into a whole tailspin. And now I'm back on this journey of what is really important, and you know, looking at family. And I've also had tragedies. And you would think the tragedies that I had would have shifted my mind, but it didn't. But
Mm,
after I had to chill out for a minute, and when the status or when those credentials or what you work for are taken away or pulled away, then it's like,
mm,
oh, this is where my focus should have been all this time. Because, like you said, if you have that foundation of your inner success and all the things that you said and what matters, you can go get that other stuff. But a lot of times, I don't think we look at it like that.
mm-mm.
So that is powerful what you said. That is, I haven't heard that from anyone else to really look at it that way. But I do also like that you said the status is still good, or if you still like the luxury of materials, because sometimes I think people think it's one or the other.
Mm,
And
mm-mm.
I've heard from other successful women, it's like, well, I don't want to have to turn inward, or because I feel like I have to give up certain things. And
Wow.
yeah, I've heard that. Like I've yeah, and I was part of like that too. And I was like, because I like certain things. So I don't, it was like this balance, like, do I become this, you know, one, you know, all the stuff that you said, the inner person focusing on my family and all of that. But then I have to be this different type of person or feeling bad because I like, you know, this outside stuff. But what you're saying is no, just don't make that the focus.
Yeah, right. You know, and there's nothing wrong with, say, I appreciate, and I buy the best quality I can for the absolute lowest price. And but I buy the best quality I can. Why? Because it lasts longer.
Yes.
I don't want to have to go and buy something 10 times, right?
Mhm.
So yes, I will pay few $100s more if I know this is going to last 20 years, as opposed to me having to go buy one every 2 or 3 years.
Exactly.
Right. Unfortunately, in our society, a lot of times that's connected to brand names, sometimes not, so,
Yes.
but I'm always looking at quality now. And that quality it has been associated with higher end status things, and therefore that label comes along with that, and that's how you end up there. And it is unfortunate because it wasn't long ago that regardless of what department store you walked in, you could buy a piece of clothing that would last for years
Yes.
because it was quality clothing. We don't have that now. You got to go buy certain brands or at a certain level to get back that quality that we were able to get from Sears and Roebuck, Montgomery Ward, Strauss.
I remember
They changed names. Now a lot of these places, some don't even exist anymore. And that's unfortunate. But I was raised that way too. You buy the best quality that you can afford because it'll last you longer and it saves you money in the long run. Yes, it costs more up front. So, but again, me having those things is not what gives me value. Right. Who and what I am and bring to the table, that gives me value. I understand who that is. I appreciate who that is. I value who that is. Right. And so that's how I'm successful, because I've seen so many people with so much money and they got so many addictions because the value is on the outside things, and there'll never be enough outside things to fill that hole on the inside of not valuing oneself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that is powerful. All right, you said a lot, and I am so grateful. So I am going to wrap with just 3 more questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, well, I am on this journey of having this movement called embracing your brilliance or embracing brilliance. And I want to know, like, when you hear that phrase, what does that mean to you?
To embrace embracing brilliance means embracing all of you and learning to trust your inner self, right? Because we all bring brilliance to the table, and we've been taught to devalue it and mistrust it. Where creativity is taught out of us, all those things. And you have to get them back, because that is your brilliant self, right? And you have to stop practicing the things that are self-sabotage. And an individual knows what's self-sabotage or not. They already know their patterns, right? You have to believe, even if you say it over and over again to yourself all the time, that you are worthy for the best things in life and what that means to you, right? Because my best in life, it could be some 7,000 foot square house where somebody else, nope, they just want a log cabin by the lake, right? But you have to believe you're worthy of that. And when you believe and know that you are worthy without having done anything else, that's when I think we tap into our real brilliance, because we stop blocking the flow of that creativity and all those negative naysayers on this and that we had ideas about. That's gone, and all that wonderful creative energy begins to flow, and you are flowing in self, right? That's brilliant. That's why I've always been attracted to guys, as I'm heterosexual. So I always been attracted to guys who are living in the brilliance. And that's whether they're sports coaches or they're musicians, or I love brilliant. They've tapped into that vein,
Wow.
right? And they're working it at the highest level of themselves. And I just find that super sexy. So that's what brilliance is to me.
Wow. Well, I love that. Oh my goodness. I need to add that to my list. They must be in their brilliance.
Yes, whatever that is for
Whatever.
them, it has to be, they brilliant
Yeah.
teachers, right? If they're incredible teachers and they get those kids going,
Yeah.
right? And those kids understand that they have value, that they have worth, that they come from an awesome heritage, and they're on fire every day, and you can just see the passion and the light and that's brilliant. I'm attracted to that. I am. I think that's like the sexiest thing a man could wear is his brilliance. Yeah.
Well, now I don't even want to ask my other two questions because but you said you are, so because this is important, you are at at one of the top levels, especially in our field of education. And
Yes.
you didn't mention anything about his status, his money, or
No.
any of that. You were like, is for him to flow in himself, flow
Yes.
in self,
Yes.
that is what it is all about. So from a woman who has the status and everything like that, that is not what you said. And sometimes we think we have to match, because I'm at this level, he needs to be at this level. And it's not even credential. Like maybe you have the credentials, but he has the money or the fame. But I
Right.
love that you said that. So and then we'll wrap with this because I think that's important, especially for high achieving women. And I know some women who've been ashamed of the guys that they love because they don't have that
Mhm.
title. But then it's like, I didn't have the words, but it's like, is he flowing in himself? Did he embrace his brilliance? So,
Jesse, and if he's comfortable in himself and being with you, knowing that there might not be the money match or the status match, that's a rare man. You better keep hold of him. I can tell you that, right? Because men are taught, right? And we are taught as women too, that should be flipped and
yeah,
that sort of thing, right? But my thing, if he is living in his brilliance, that's totally different. If he's trying to make you the sugar mama, or
yes, let's clarify. Yes,
now, to each his own. That's not my flow, but to each his own. But if he is really and truly comfortable and you two are in love and that sort of thing, why are you allowing the world to dictate what that love should look like on a material level?
wow,
Yeah, I'm not, I do my best to remove all the barriers from a
wow,
relationship working. I don't try to add them in, and having the world in your business, whether that's you telling a lot of the world about your business or bringing in the world's quote unquote standards into your business rather than developing that relationship between you and that partner. Yeah, no, that's a recipe for disaster just waiting to happen, I think. So yeah, that's the reason. Now there are other qualities that
of
come
course.
in, but I tell you that the thing that keeps me attracted and motivated and going is them operating in that brilliance that has got to be there. Um, yeah, and when it wasn't, that relationship fizzled fast because there was nothing to occupy my mind, right? I love wit, and I love excellence of knowledge in whatever form you're bringing that. And again, the brilliance taps into that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is the last, and it's not a question, it's for you to give your last words. What advice would you give for high achieving professional women who may not realize they need to tap into a personal or transformational, some type of growth journey in that area and not so much focus on, any more professional learning? So what
Okay.
advice would you give them to say like this is important, or you might want to start anything like that?
Okay, so I would say the best thing you can do if there's that aching in that hole and you just can't quite feel it. I love journaling. So it goes back to, me being professor of English and really just loving writing and using writing as a healing tool. And I would suggest that just writing down your thoughts, I mean, just jotting something down on a 30-day basis and then see is there a reoccurring theme? Is there something you're coming back over and over again to? And that's the area that, you need to look inward on because you're not going to be able to fulfill it with outward things, right? And so that's one way of looking at whether you're really addressing your inward growth. And if you are still very dependent on compliments from people and, all those other outward accolades again, those go away. And if you feel empty when they go away, there's still more inward work to be done. There's a lot of inward work to be done in that and learning to be quiet, being content with being quiet and alone with oneself, right? So whatever tools appeal to you out there to take that journey, I strongly suggest that you do because it will only make you a stronger professional in the long run. When you know that you are operating in an authentic self and you feel secure from the inside out, that's power. That's professional power at the table.
I love it. Well, thank you
Okay.
so much. I am
Welcome.
going to add you've written books. I have your books. And do you want to share that or do you want me to just add it like in the description where people can find some of your work, whether that's your personal work or your
Or
professional work?
Sure. Yeah, so I would love it if you'd add it into the description, but I will also
Okay.
share. So I have a bodice ripper series called Sacred Loving. So if you like that genre, I won't tell you up front. But the first one is out. It's on Amazon. Taking a bit of hiatus here since I started my job as dean, but there'll be a second, there are actually novellas, be a second and third novella coming, as well as a book of sultry poetry that accompanies that. I also have a co-written book on Toni Morrison,
Yes.
Toni Morrison's Secret Dive with Dr. David Goldstein, that's out that I think is a awesome addition. We explore Morrison's feistiness, right? And what drove her as an author. A couple of other personal books that I have coming out are Faith After Trauma. And it talks about how my faith got me through the loss of my oldest daughter. And that's coming out in 2022, as well as I'm starting a book on writing to heal, a series on writing to heal. And I've talked a lot about that. And that's all through my personal publishing company, Mwanga, Mwanga Publishing LLC. Website will be ready in a couple of months, but Mwanga is Swahili for light illumination. And so those are the kinds of books that will be published through that in all sorts of genres. So I'm really happy to share that.
Awesome. Yes, because part of this is I want to hear your story, but also putting your brilliance out there because sometimes we're like, yeah, I wrote stuff, I have stuff, and then we keep it over here. And it's like, no, we're going to get it out there. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Campbell, for allowing us to share this time with you and for you to answer those questions and drop all of those diamond nuggets that you gave us. So I appreciate your time and thank you, everyone. I hope you remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time. Bye.